What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video of Baitcasting with Buddy, and today I want to talk to you about how you can increase the lifespan of your reel by doing several different things, and the last two you might want to stick around and listen to. Come along. Alright guys, so let's dive into this. Now, the first thing I like to do is just kind of wipe it down with a microfiber rag. You know, you can use any kind of rag. I don't use any kind of cleaners on it. Every once in a while I'll use some water, but I just wipe it down as well as I can. And then sometimes when you get in the cracks, or you need to get into the cracks, sometimes I'll use like a toothpick and kindly go in there without really trying to push too hard, just trying to loosen some things up, especially in the back. I'll kind of use a toothpick to get in some of these areas here, and then every once in a while I'll use some alcohol and use a Q-tip and try to get in there and get the majority of that stuff out. A lot of the times that gucks up in there or goops up in there, and you want to kind of get that stuff out. As you can see right there, got some stuff already, but you're just gonna kind of look it over and check it out. And then once I do that, I actually use a car sealant. This is a Wolfgang product. It's pretty expensive too, but I use this, and what it does is it's like a liquid sealant to where I don't know if you've ever washed a car before and seen the car when it rains or has water on it, it actually kind of like beads off and falls off, and it makes it a lot easier to wash the car. Well, I use this too. I just do like one spray. You shake this up pretty good. Get one spray, and one spray will do the entire reel. So I'll put that stuff on there, and it's a really good sealant. I mean, you don't have to use that sealant. You can just find any kind of sealant, and if you don't want to use sealant at all, you don't have to. It's just something I started doing. All right, so I'll just wipe it on there real good, get all the parts. Alright, so the next thing that I do is I actually oil the reel up. Okay, so some of the compartments, or some reels, may have a small little compartment in it to where you use a screwdriver to loosen it up, and then inside here is the gears to where you would drop a couple drops inside this little box right here. You don't want to go overboard with it. If you go overboard with it, it starts seeping out through the reel, and you don't want that. So like 2 to 3 drops inside this little gearbox right here is very good. Now, if you don't have one, you don't have to worry about that, but you also want to do the 2 bearings that are inside here. So you loosen this up. On the side plate of the reel, you'll have a bearing right there in the middle, and you usually just want to do 1 drop, and I can actually do that right now. So I'll take my oil. Alright, I want to just do 1 drop in there, and that's all you have to do. You don't have to do multiple drops. It kind of will I guess sink into that ball bearing right there, and I'll leave that there for a second, and then you actually have another one too. Sometimes it's hard to get this out due to the line on there, but you also have another ball bearing right there. So I'll take that the oil, and I will do 1 little drop on it. That's it. I won't try to work it around or anything. As you put it back into the reel and start spinning it around, it actually spreads it around for you. So put that line back around, set it back in there, put the cap back on, lock it back up. Now go ahead and give it a couple cranks, and that should be good to go. Now, the next thing that I do, and a lot of people overlook this little gear inside here is actually called the worm shaft. And inside this little piece right here, this round piece here, is the little pin that goes through that worm shaft, actually allowing your line to go back and forth and spool equally. So a lot of people, I don't know if you know this or not, but over time, if you have not ever greased this, over time that little pin inside will wear off, and as you're out there fishing, when you're reeling in, all the line will go to one side, and that's because the pin inside of your little worm shaft gear area had worn out to where it's not going back and forth anymore. So the number one thing, if you need to know anything about reel maintenance and to increase the longevity of your reel, you want to put some sort of grease inside of that worm shaft gear area. And as you can see right here where it's at, that worm shaft area right there, it's got small little grooves in it. And the stuff that I use is by Quantum. It's called hot sauce. This stuff right here is talked about very highly, and a lot of the times when you try to order it on Tackle Warehouse, it is back ordered. And this right here is by far the best stuff that I've ever used. It's called hot sauce by Quantum. So what I do is, it's a lot easier when you have the reel off of the rod too. I just put 1 drop in here, and then I do another little drop on the other side. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I just put a little bit in there. It might look like I'm filling it up, but I'm actually not. And then go ahead and start cranking it. All right, reeling it in, spin it a couple times, and if it looks like there's some areas that may need a little bit more, go ahead and put a little bit more in. But I'm telling you right now that stuff right there, and keeping this greased, really prevents you from getting frustrated when you're out there fishing, especially if you don't have many reels. If you're only out there with 2 reels, if you're like kayak fishing, or you just have 3 rods that you're out there fishing with a buddy, and one of them goes and it's the rod that you've been using and it's the one that you've been catching fish on, it's going to be very frustrating, especially if that worm shaft and that pin goes. So there are some of the main things that I do. All right, so the next thing I do, I'll take a screwdriver, and then there's tons of little screws, especially this one right here in the reel handle. You want to make sure that that's tight. I know everybody that fishes had this screw right here pop off. This popped off, and then it made your handle really loose, and then you had to try to scramble around and try to find something that kept this together, or you had to order some new pieces. So I always make sure, every time I do reel maintenance, I make sure that these little screws are tight. Now, you don't want to overdo it, and you don't want to strip the screw. You strip the screw, you're in trouble, so don't do that. All right, so there was 1, 2, there's 3, and then 4 screws. Now I'm just snugging them up just a tad bit. So snug your screws on there. There's also a bolt right here. If you take this screw out and this little holding piece right here, and you tighten that up a little bit, sometimes this handle will get loose and it start to shake. Take those 2 off, tighten this just a tad bit, and then fit that back on there, and it will prevent this from wiggling. So if you have that problem, just tighten that bolt up. So let's say that you were afraid to do all this stuff, and you didn't want to destroy it, you didn't want to ruin it, you didn't want to damage it in any way, shape, or form. The next thing that you can do is actually call up your reel company and see where you can send it off. You can send it off to them. They actually look it over, they take it apart, they'll actually call you and tell you which parts you may need to replace, and sometimes you can't see what's going on inside here, and they take it apart and they can tell you what's going on about it, and what you may need to replace. And a lot of the times the parts are not that expensive, so replacing some of these parts may save you some time, may save you some stress out there on the water. So sending it off could be a very key thing too. And if you don't want to clean it, if you don't want to hand clean it, you can actually pay them to clean it as well. And then that's kind of pricey. I believe that you guys can go in there and clean it just as well, if not better than what they do. I've had them clean it before, and I think it was like $30, maybe $35 a piece. So every reel that I sent out, I had cleaned, and this was in the beginning when I was kind of not really sure what I needed to do, but they cleaned it. I sent off like 6 different reels at different times, and $30 a reel plus the parts and stuff like that, and then shipping it out, it was kind of costly. So if you're not really sure on what to do and how to do it, I highly recommend you sending it off. So usually when I send it off, it's usually around tax return season. I have the money, I have time to send things off. And one tip that I can leave you is that you don't ever want to send off your reels all together, or all your reels at one time. You always want to make sure that you send off a couple here and there. And I recommend that you send off ones that may be similar to the ones you may need for that week. So if I needed this for a spinning or a spinner bait, and I have another one that I use for spinner baits, I'll send that one off. I won't send both spinnerbait reels off to where I don't have a spinnerbait reel, so keep that in mind. Another thing too, when you send things off, especially your reels, you want to pay for the insurance on it. So if you send it out, they'll ask you always, do you want insurance on it? And usually the insurance is about $10. So if this reel, or I guess it depends on how many you have in there, or the weight, but you can tell them what you have in there. And if this is $300, it might be $10 for insurance on it. So, you know, if you send out 3 reels, $30 of insurance, that's going to insure you for $900. You might want to do that just in case they lose these. And $900, you can buy some different reels, or maybe even some higher end reels that you may have wanted. So always insure them when you send them out. All right, guys, so another thing that I do is I actually store these reels inside the house. I actually store all my rods and reels in the house, and a lot of my baits too. I believe that storing them in the garage or in your boat, especially if you're leaving the boat outside, those temperatures fluctuate too much to where it alters the grease and the oil in here, to where you're going to have to maintenance more often. So I always leave them in the house. So one tip that I can leave you is, you may, if you have space or room in the house, leave these inside your house, and it helps out tremendously. And another thing that I do too when I leave them in the house, every time I'm done fishing, I cut my baits off, I wind this up, and then I loosen the drag. Edwin Evers not too long ago talked about reel longevity and increasing the lifespan of your reel, and the one thing that he mentioned was to loosen your drag when you stow it, just so it doesn't have all that tension. Because as you can see, when you tighten it up, it's compressing. So when you loosen it up, it actually decompresses it to where it's not causing too much stress on your reel. So if you can, store them in the house. All right, so let's get down to the juice. I know there's 2 things that I wanted to tell you that were something that you probably wanted to hear. So the first thing was that I probably send my reels out 3 to 4 times, and every time they get the package, every time they look over the reels, you know, they price out all these pieces that may need to be replaced. But before they get to that price and what it is, they actually offer you a discounted price on the newest model of a reel. So if you're in the market to actually get new reels and your reels are old, you may send them in for maintenance, and they may offer you a discounted price. And I'm talking about a large discount, almost 50% off. I want to say it is 50% off, if not more, depending on how generous they are. But you can buy the same reel. So let's say that this reel was $200, 50% off. You're getting a $200 reel for $100. And if you send off 3 reels, they're going to ask you if you want a new reel on all the new model, or all the models that you send in. So I highly recommend, if you have some old reels and you want some new ones and you want them discounted, send them off. See if they ask you. They may not ask you anymore, I don't know, but they've asked me 3 out of the 4 times I sent mine out. And the 4th time, I actually bought all new reels. My wife allowed me to do so. And I mean, it was probably a $2,500 purchase, and I got it for about like $1,100. So I got about 7, maybe 6 to 7 reels for $1,100. And I'm talking about like the Revo MGX, the Revo Rocket, the ALF, all the high-end reels I got, and they were literally 50% off, and I couldn't give that up. So one tip, if you're in the market to find new reels and you have reels, you have old reels, send them off, see what they have to offer. All right. Now this one right here is probably the most important. And if anybody's around you that purchases your fishing hobby or your fishing addiction, your wife, your mom, your girlfriend, whoever, you might want to turn this down. All right, so let's compare this. Yeah, my wife, she's in the other room. I don't want her to hear this either. So let's compare this to a brand new pair of shoes, right? Let's say you only have 1 pair of shoes. Okay, you wear them to work, you wear them walking with the family, you wear them to the gym, you know, you wear them on your vacation, you're wearing them. Well, if you only have 1 pair of shoes, those shoes are going to get pretty beat up really quick, and I'm pretty sure you guys know where I'm getting to this. The more reels you have, the less you'll use a particular reel. So I'm not saying that you won't use a reel often, but let's say you had 13 pairs of shoes. You can wear 13 pairs of shoes from time to time, increasing the life of your shoes because you're not wearing them as often, right? So the more reels you have, the longer the life of your reel will become, or the longer your reel will live, I guess you can say. So get more reels. See you next time.